Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Zaina Cahill, and I am the Early Childhood Education Policy Director for Children First. Today, we're joined by all of these champions for childcare who understand the impact that the sector has on children, working families, and our economy. Especially these lawmakers and the constituents that you'll hear from today understand the impact that the inability to recruit and retain educators in childcare programs has on every community. So let's hear what they have to say. First, I'd like to introduce the House Majority Leader, Matt Bradford.
Thank you, Zaina and Donna, and for all the advocates for making sure that child care is not just a top issue for the House Democratic Caucus, but is a top issue in this building in this budget year. I want to thank and congratulate my colleagues, Chairman Harris, and everybody up here today who've been on the forefront in making sure that in every budget, but in particular in this budget, when the needs of our child care workers, our employers that hire many of these folks, and our folks that need to get to those jobs need to be heard in this building, in this budget. This caucus is proud that we've moved forward on the issue of child care. Just 2 years ago, I believe we passed the dependent care tax credit. At the time, it was a foot in the door. It was a statement of principle that we needed to do more. That if we were going to be serious about being pro-worker and pro-employer and pro-business and pro-growth and making Pennsylvania more competitive, that we needed to make child care more accessible and more affordable for Pennsylvanians. Well, what started out as a small step last year through a massive expansion in coordination with our governor and in a bipartisan way with the Senate, we were able to do a dependent care tax credit that fully 100% matches the federal credit and was a major historic step forward, and I want to thank my colleagues for making that happen. But now at a time where too many folks are dealing with the cost crisis in our Commonwealth, we need to do more. Governor Shapiro in this year's budget has a retention plan to help fund and help retain those workers that are making sure that our kids get the type of care that we'd want for all of them, but also make sure that our workforce is able to get to the jobs that we need to power this economy. Now, I know over the next few months you're going to hear a lot about priorities, and they're right. Resources are limited, and we must make investments that are wise and strategic. But wise and strategic investments are workforce investments. They're investments that will grow this economy and make our workforce more strong and make this economy more strong. Now, I know that Chairman Harris has said very clearly how important the dependent care tax credit was, and I know the issue of retention is equally important. I want to thank Zaina and I want to thank Donna for the work that they've done keeping this on the highest priority in this building. So over the next few months, you're going to hear a lot, but you're going to hear a lot from this caucus saying we need to double down on the investments we've made. We need to go further. We need to help those working families. We need to help working parents, and we need to help the employers that retain those folks. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Zaina, and I'm going to let her know that we will be hearing a lot on this issue in the next few months. And I know Chairman Harris has got some words as well. So with that, thank you.
Thank you so much to Leader Bradford. And now I would like to introduce our Appropriations Chair, Representative Jordan Harris.
All right. So let me first thank Zaina, let me thank Children's First and Donna for all of the work that you're not just doing on this issue, but a myriad of issues that affect our young people across this Commonwealth. You know, our leader said it best. We worked in a bipartisan fashion to ensure that we were putting money back into the pockets of parents and those who have dependent folk in their lives. Because what we know is that the cost of child care, the cost of taking care of our children in general has continued to increase, and that far too many of Pennsylvania's folks needed support in the work that they're doing. But today we're here also to talk about all of those men and women who take care of our youngest learners. Those men and women who went to school understanding that when you educate a child earlier, it helps the child on their educational trajectory. When you educate a child earlier, it actually saves us money in remedial services that we have to provide to our young people in our school system. But they also understand that child care is not only just about the education of the child, but the child care is also about the economy. Because when parents can't find reliable and safe child care, they can't work. So for those folks who say that they are pro-business and they care about the economy, they should care about child care. For those folks that say they care about small businesses across this Commonwealth, they should care about child care. What the governor has done in this budget with this $55 million proposed investment is to thank all of those men and women throughout Pennsylvania who are child care workers, who took the time to go to school and who have dedicated their lives to provide a service to some of our most vulnerable populations, which I believe are our young people. This is about saying thank you to them, but also to retain the knowledge that they have and keep them in front of our young people. But I want you to imagine something. I want you to imagine going to school, working in the field, taking care of someone else's child every single day, but not being able to take care of your own child financially because you don't make enough money. I want you to think about taking care of someone else's child every single day, but instead of giving that child 100%, you can only give them 85% because you're thinking about whether you'll be able to pay your light bill or pay your gas bill. I want you to think about all of those child care workers who are still on government services, not because they don't work, but because we don't financially support them. That's why these dollars and this investment is so important. So our leader is right. You are going to hear people talk about priorities. And I agree with them. We have to look at priorities. But what better priority do we have than our young people? You want to set somebody up for the future, you take care of them now. In our child care centers, our early education centers is where we should be investing our dollars to make sure that our children are set up for the future. So this caucus and all of my colleagues stand ready, willing to work to make sure that we do all that we can, that when the budget proposal makes it to the governor's desk, that these dollars are there. Because again, if you care about the economy, you care about child care. If you care about small businesses, you care about child care. If you care about education in the future, you got to care about child care today. Thank you all so much for the work you continue to do for our most vulnerable children.
Thank you so much, Chairman Harris. And now I'd like to introduce Majority Caucus Secretary Tina Davis.
And please don't ever put me behind the Majority Chairman Appropriations Chair again. I'm going to just talk personally about my own family and my own sister-in-law and my niece have their own daycare. And they have about 35 children. And my sister-in-law, who is now 60 years old, works 12 hours a day because she can't find enough care. The parents that are bringing their children in are struggling, so they might not necessarily bring them enough food every day or enough diapers. They like to change diapers every 2 hours. You don't think of this, but parents don't do that because they can't afford it. They bring in 3 diapers for the day, and they might be there 12 hours. They have to pay child care workers $12 an hour to $14 an hour, which is nothing today. But these women and men, they don't just teach these children. They love these children. They bathe these children. They change their diapers. They hug them. They do everything that we do as a parent. And if we didn't have them, we could not survive. So I want to thank all of you for the work that we do. I also want to add, we have in our caucus a child care little coalition that we formed a few years ago, and that's how we got the child care tax credit bill. We will be meeting again with new bills that hopefully you can help us with, and we'll be glad to meet with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Davis. Now I'd like to introduce Majority Caucus Administrator Diane Krueger.
Hi, I'm Representative Leanne Krueger from Delaware County, and I stand before you as a mom, My son was 3 years old when I was sworn into this legislature, and I have been serving as a single mom for almost 10 years. I could not do my job without high quality childcare. And so many of my colleagues are in the same position, and even more importantly, so many of the families that I represent in Delaware County face the same struggles as the rest of us when they're trying to get to work in the morning. So I was grateful to see the governor put $55 million in a recruitment and retention fund into the budget this year, which would mean $1,000 per staffer. Now, in Delco, where I represent, I know the need is great because I've been to visit the child care centers. They call me when there's challenges on the ground. And last fall, this coalition surveyed those providers and found that 87% of them had a staffing shortage. They found that over 1,000 kids were currently sitting on waiting lists for high quality childcare, 1,076. 89% of those providers reported challenges recruiting and retaining staff, and there were 146 open staff positions last fall during the survey, mostly because of low wages and lack of benefits. We had an opportunity last year to step up, and our caucus did that, and I'm so grateful to the leadership of my colleagues who have stood up again and again and again to fight for our working families and to fight for our kids. This year, we've got a chance to get another win over the finish line, and we hope to be standing back before you when the budget passed to say that this was a victory this year. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Representative Krueger. And now I'd like to introduce the chair of the Philadelphia delegation, Representative Morgan Cephas.
Thank you. When Donna Cooper and Children First call you to a gunfight, you make sure that you are there and that you are available. So I just want to thank you for being intentional about this conversation very early on. As I mentioned, I'm State Representative Morgan Cephas. I'm the chair of the Philadelphia delegation. I'm also the co-chair of the Black Maternal Health Caucus. I represent the 192nd Legislative District and sections of West Philadelphia. Needless to say, I have many hats, but the one hat that is the honor of my life is being an auntie to little Harper Cox. Like so many families, my younger sister had her child during COVID-19. That was during a time when we saw child care centers closing. We saw child care workers laid off. We saw our entire system shut down, which meant overnight I became a nurse, a party planner, and a party promoter, an architect, a puzzle maker, but also I understood what it meant to be the de facto child care. And not just during the pandemic, but every single time that her child care center had to close because they didn't have the right work staff, someone called out, or the wages weren't enough. I had to stand in and become that stopgap. Not only was that a reality for me, but just last year in the city of Philadelphia, we had a bit of a challenge that essentially was a major disruption and completely halted our child care system in the city of Philadelphia, not at any result of their own doing, but at a discrepancy that happened on the state level. And I bring that up because during that disruption, it reinforced the importance of the child care workforce, not just to keep the doors open, but it reminded us that the disruption was to our economy, to the lives of families who were forced to adjust their work schedules by either calling out, taking less hours, or leaving their jobs completely because of a small discrepancy that almost tanked an entire industry in the city of Philadelphia. Now, because of those reasons, my colleagues talked about how we were able to double down in the last budget season with the child independent tax credit. But we also didn't talk about some additional work we did by passing an employer child care tax credit that brought employers to the table, gave them a tax credit if they invested in their families and their workforce, if they provided some additional care. Because of those things, we were able to determine our own destiny here in the Commonwealth. So as we watch on the federal level, and watching what the White House is doing to erode so many of our systems, including our child care system. This is the time now more than ever that we must continue to double down on ensuring that we have a child care system and infrastructure that works for every single family across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which is why I'm glad that we are standing here extremely early, before we even start negotiating the budget, talking about the importance of child care and how it moves an economy. But I also wanted to uplift that our child care providers in the workforce are majority women. So when we talk about, when we're on the tail end of Women's History Month, when just last week my colleagues here talked about the importance of equal pay, we're not just talking about a system and infrastructure that we need to continue investing in. We are talking about investing in women who are half the population in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So I know we have our work cut out for us. And again, I know Donna's going to keep calling these press conferences, and we are going to keep showing up, because it is critical now more than ever, particularly what's happening at the federal level, that we determine our own destiny here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by making these investments. So I thank you for coming out. Let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. With that, I got my assignment early. I'm going to turn it over to my partner in progress, Chairwoman Jennifer O'Mara.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jen O'Mara. I'm a state representative from Delaware County, and I serve as chair of the Southeast Delegation, which is the 4 collar counties outside of Philadelphia in our caucus. As a working mom with another one on the way, I constantly think about my child care needs. I am very privileged to have the support of my family and a network of individuals around me that help me raise my kids. But I know that is not the case for everyone. For single working moms, childcare is the lifeline they need to support their families and fund a brighter future for their kids. I was raised by a single mom, and because of the fact that she lived paycheck to paycheck, I was often her childcare. So I understand what working families are facing across this Commonwealth. Right now, we face a critical shortage of high-quality childcare, and it's devastating families. This isn't just an inconvenience, it is a crisis. Child care centers are struggling to staff their classrooms with skilled and experienced professionals. These are trained professionals, yet they are among the most undervalued and lowest paid workers in our society. This is not only unacceptable, it's unsustainable. Parents deserve the peace of mind that comes from knowing their children are in the trusted care of qualified professionals. They trust care providers with the most precious thing in our lives, our children. Child care workers deserve the respect and compensation that reflects that trust. The dismal wages that are considered industry standard are not just driving statewide staffing shortages, they're creating long wait lists and severely limiting access. And when providers are overworked and underpaid, the quality of care suffers. At the end of the day, these decisions are impacting our children the most. That's why this $55 million investment is so important. Child care workers deserve a living wage just as much as parents deserve to excel in their own careers and feel confident in their child care provider. A well-paid, well-trained child care workforce creates a stable environment for children, and this is the foundation that is the most important for their entire lives. Funding child care is pro-family. Again, I say funding child care is pro-family. I ask that my colleagues across the aisle recognize this and join us as we work to get these teachers the recognition that they deserve. Thank you, Donna, and all at Children First for what you are doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, to the point of Chairwoman Cephas, tomorrow is Equal Pay Day. That is the day in which women are finally going to earn the same amount that their male counterparts earned from last year. But it also impacts women because they tend to work in the care economy. That is why it's so important that we make this investment and lift up women, families, and children all across the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairwoman O'Mara. And now we're going to introduce Representative Gina Curry. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is State Representative Gina H. Curry, and I proudly represent the 164th Legislative District in Delaware County. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about a critical issue that affects the future of our families, communities, and economy here in Pennsylvania, our child care system. Right now, we're facing a crisis. Our child care system is broken, and it's costing Pennsylvania a staggering $6.65 billion every year. That's not just a number, it's a loss that reverberates throughout our entire state. It's families who are struggling to find affordable and reliable care. It's businesses that are losing employees who can't afford quality child care. It's communities that are missing out on opportunities for growth, stability, and development. This is an issue we can't afford to ignore any longer. But here's the good news. We have a solution, and it's an investment that will more than pay for itself. For just $55 million, a fraction of that $6.65 billion we're currently losing, we can fix or start to fix this broken system. Think about it for a moment. A tenfold return on investment. For every dollar we invest in strengthening our child care workforce, we stand to gain far more in return. This investment isn't just about improving child care. It's about improving the very foundation of our economy. When families have access to reliable, affordable child care, parents can go to work knowing that their children are in safe hands. This means more workers in the workforce, more productivity, and more economic growth. Businesses can retain their employees, and parents can re-enter the workforce, and communities become more stable and prosperous. The reality is that we can't expect to have a thriving economy if we don't have a strong child care system in place. These two issues are deeply, deeply intertwined. Investing in child care is not just a moral obligation, it's an economic necessity. Yeah, it's an economic necessity. If we continue to neglect this issue, the $6.5 billion with a B we're losing every year will only grow, and the gap between our potential and our reality will continue to widen. So what can we do? We must come together across party lines and make this a priority. Make this our priority. We need to invest in the recruitment and retention of child care workers. We need to ensure that families can access quality care without sacrificing their financial stability, and we need to do it now. The longer we wait, the more we continue to lose, both in economic terms and in the future opportunities of our children. This is our chance to make a bold decision, one that will pay off in the long run for families, businesses, and for the entire Commonwealth. By acting now, we can transform Pennsylvania's economy and give every child, every family, and every community the chance to thrive. Thank you, Donna and Children's First, for always doing it right, and we're going to get this done.
Thank you so much, Representative Curry. And now I'd like to introduce Representative Paul Friel.
Thank you very much. I'm Paul Friel, Chester County. And it's often said that budgets are a reflection of our values. And what better way to reflect our values here in Pennsylvania than to invest in our child care workers and our families and our workforce. And I want to tell you something. This is not an investment that we are questioning whether it'll work or not. We know it will. In 18 other states, they've invested in child care retention bonuses, and those strategies are working. As a result of Wisconsin's investment in recruitment and retention, 99% of the recipients of their stipends are still employed in child care. In North Carolina, 98% of the recipients of the recruitment and retention program are wanting to stay in the child care field. Iowa, Nebraska, there are also programs that have touched 100% of their child care workforce have been touched and helped out financially through these programs. So there's no other place that we can make an investment that'll restate our values like we can in our child care workforce. So I just ask you with these two questions, why don't we want to be that in this Commonwealth? And why wouldn't we want to be a state leading the way? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Friel. And now I'd like to introduce Representative Joe Webster.
Good morning. I know it's afternoon, and it wasn't morning when we started, but I was standing with my colleagues behind here, and I said good morning, and I did that a few times in the past, and wanted to just say let's roll with that, because the part of morning is a new day and sunshine and hope and vision. And you've heard a lot of my colleagues mention that part of it. If we're taking care of our children, if we're providing care, then that's pro-worker, that's pro-parent. That creates the opportunity for that parent to go to work and be a great employee. So it's also pro-business. And when that employee and that creates success for the business, and they all get paid, it creates economic growth. And you heard that discussion already this afternoon. But we're not tying it in a bow, because it starts back around again. And if you look at a modern economy, and all of us standing here, we want Pennsylvania to grow in a modern economy, then the fact is that in most families, and it's a really high number, in most families, both parents are working. So that creates even more pressure on the need in a modern economy for us to have child care and dependent care and support for those workers. Because the downside is you're underpaid, you find a different opportunity if possible, you're maybe not motivated, and that circular growth pattern actually looks the other direction. And that's kind of where we are, where our staff are underpaid in child care, where there are thousands of open jobs and then a long waiting list. So we have a really easy choice. Let's invest in child care. Let's create that higher earning potential for our child care givers, for our parents, for our businesses to be successful, because a parent who can work hard because they're not worried about their child, because they know they're in a good spot and they're getting health and meals and education, creates this dynamic. And we've talked about that a number of times today, but it's real, and we can do better, and the opportunity is right in front of us. And I think what you've heard from the Democratic Caucus this afternoon is all about that commitment, and so one more, and I look forward to supporting that in all the different aspects of this building while we're home, and with our the people who are doing it every day. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Representative Webster. And I'm going to turn it over to Representative Missy Serrato.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand before you as a passionate advocate for the Children's First and Start Strong child care campaign, and as a proud mother of 4 extraordinary daughters. My journey as a parent has shown me, beyond a shadow of a doubt, how essential quality child care is, not just for our children, but for the families and communities that rely on it every single day. Childcare isn't just a service. It's the bedrock of our society, the foundation on which we build brighter, stronger futures. Yet for far too long, the dedication and sacrifices of childcare providers, the workforce behind Pennsylvania's workforce, have gone unnoticed, undervalued, and undersupported. In my own county, Montgomery County, there are 256 staff positions in childcare open. That means almost 2,500 more children could be served if those positions were filled. This gap isn't just a statistic. It's a reality that impacts families, caregivers, and our economy. Child care services empower parents, especially mothers, to pursue careers, contribute to Pennsylvania's economy, and build financial security for their families. Without adequate access to child care, many families face missed work, lost wages, and a ripple effect that can grow into millions of dollars in lost retirement assets, benefits, and long-term earnings. This is why the proposed $55 million investment in recruitment and retention in child care programs is so critical. This funding isn't just a number, it's a lifeline. It's a pledge to honor the vital role that child care providers play and to recognize them as the heroes they truly are. As a mom, I know firsthand how invaluable it is to have peace of mind, knowing your child is in the hands of nurturing, skilled caregivers. That peace of mind is priceless, and every parent deserves it. Childcare is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Today, let's make it clear to Pennsylvania and to the nation that we value this essential workforce and we are ready to invest in their success, because their success is our success and our children's success. Thank you for your leadership, your vision, and your unwavering support for this sector. Together, let's ensure that child care providers finally receive the recognition and support they so deeply deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Serrato. And now I'm going to turn it over to Representative Napoleon Nelson.
Thank you. I think it's, good morning, first of all. It's so important that we talk about this. It's so important that we gather together and say thank you to our child care providers. They're really angels if you think about it. Not just if you think about the petri dish that is their classrooms and what it is to bring so many of our youngest learners together and try and provide organization, but the importance of their work. When I think about, from a K-12 space, the achievement gaps that we have in our education system, I know that perhaps the greatest achievement gap happens in kindergarten or first grade, just because of the readiness of students who are coming into our schools, based so heavily on the child care provision that had been given to them in their earliest years. It's God's work what they're doing, and so it is, as we always say, it's right to give thanks, right? And it's so important that we both thank our child care providers for the work that they do and for the impact that they have in our education system, but it's also important a lot of times in this building when we talk about education, we talk about pipelines and trying to construct pipelines, but today we need to make sure that we do our work to tear down a pipeline that has been growing in Pennsylvania, because our child care system has become an amazing pipeline into roles with Target and Amazon. Our child care system has become an unfortunate pipeline into roles in grocery stores, and an unfortunate pipeline into roles at DoorDash and other sorts of endeavors that do not provide for us as a community like they should, but they provide wages for our providers, our child care providers, that we as a legislature weren't willing to give them. When we're not paying the folks that we are counting on to provide such essential service in our communities, when we're not willing to step up and pay them the dollars that they are worth, we don't get to look surprised when they leave. We don't get to look surprised when we are now left without those resources. We don't get to look surprised when our children show up at schools and they're not prepared. So now is the time that we need to deconstruct this pipeline out of childcare and make sure that we are providing real resource, retention and recruitment of educators and childcare workers instead of a disincentive to stay. Because my kids were in those childcare programs and they benefited from them. And I had too easy of a job myself as a state rep. One of my first hires was an amazing child care provider. And we don't pay an awful lot. And she was so happy to come to actually be able to make ends meet for her and her family. And it both broke my heart at how easy it was to get such a valuable, valuable resource, both for the community, but I thought about the kids that I was taking their teacher away. And we need to fix that. So let's get this work done this year, today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Nelson. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rep. Tarek Khan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So as a nurse, I know how important it is to invest in kids. It is critical that, especially when a child has demonstrated that they have deficits that they need to be addressed, we need to make sure we're getting these kids into early intervention. As a nurse practitioner, I've referred a lot of children to early intervention, and I'm very proud that this budget invests $10 million into early intervention to get these kids the help that they need at an early time when you can still do something and have a big impact. So these kids do not fall behind in school. This budget also invests $15 million into pre-K counts. And this is something actually I've been working on with Rep. Nelson, Rep. Curry, Rep. Doherty, and Rep. McNeil, because pre-K is one of those interventions that has a profound doubling, tripling, quadrupling effect as you get down the line. It is one of the best interventions you can have for our future. It's good for the child because the children, again, will not fall back in school because they have this. They'll have better test grades. They're more likely to own a home when they get older. They're more likely to have a well-paying job when they get older. They're less likely to be involved in the criminal justice system because of pre-K. And it is an insult to these providers that they're making about $30,000 a year. That's not good for our economy. We have to make sure we're investing in these providers. We have to help these families who do not even have this for their kids to be able to open up slots. And this budget will help us get 3,000 more providers, more child care providers, so that we can have about 25,000 more kids get into those programs. This is good for the economy. When we're talking about stimulating our economy, growing Pennsylvania economy, making Pennsylvania more attractive for employers, making a place that people want to come move to because there is child care, we invest in pre-K, we invest in early intervention. That's what this budget does, and I'm very proud to be working on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Representative Khan. And now we're going to hear from Representative Steve Malagari.
Thank you, Zaina, and thank you, Donna, as well. I'm Representative Steve Malagari. I want to thank the previous speaker, Representative Khan, for your leadership and dedication to early childhood education and providing services for the young ones. I serve on the Appropriations Committee, representing Montgomery County. It's an honor to be here with you, with all of you, advocates, educators, community leaders who are fighting to ensure that every single child in Pennsylvania has access to high-quality early learning. We all know that childcare isn't just a service, it's the foundation of our economy, our workforce, our future. But right now, our childcare system is hanging by a thread. These programs are small businesses operating on razor-thin margins. A single unexpected cost, a leaky roof, a broken furnace, or even one teacher leaving can mean the difference between an open classroom serving 20 children and a closed classroom with a mile-long waiting list. The reality is, childcare providers are being forced to make impossible choices. They can't afford to pay their staff competitive wages because the system is so drastically underfunded. And when childcare teachers leave for better paying jobs and elsewhere, it's our families, our children, who pay the price. Parents are left scrambling for care, missing work, and facing financial strain, while kids miss out on critical early learning opportunities that set the stage for lifelong success. We cannot let another year pass without action. The time is now. We must step up and be the ones to say, This is the year Pennsylvania will get this done. This is the year that we invest in our children, our workforce, our economy, by properly funding childcare. Because when we support childcare, we support working families. We support small businesses. We support the next generation of learners, leaders, and innovators. So let's get this done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Representative Malagary. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Leslie Spina. She's an early childhood education provider out of Philadelphia. Dr. Spina.
Thank you all for being here. Again, I'm Leslie Spina, and I have been doing this work for 30 years. I started when I was 12, clearly. But I operate 5 high-quality programs in Northeast Philadelphia with around 500 families and about 100 staff. I am so very privileged to be working in this field, and every day I think of it as a privilege. This field is so multifaceted. You get bang for your buck for sure. This is social services, this is education. We are part of an economy in both directions. We employ lots of people. We help people get credentials. The teachers who come to us often don't have credentials. We help them get credentialed, more on that later, so that they can make more money. They are spending money in our communities, but maybe most importantly, we are allowing 500 families to be able to go to work every single day. They never have to worry that our doors will not open because we run high-quality programs where we're investing in our staff. But we cannot do it alone. I'm so proud of our governor for saying we need to invest more. We need to do a better job. There should be pay parity between early childhood, which is part of the education system. It is the bridge from being born to K-12. We would never consider not paying our kindergarten or our second grade teachers a wage that is a living wage. But every single day we expect teachers with bachelor's degrees or associate's degrees or master's degrees to make between $12 and $15 an hour. When people come to us in this field, they very frequently love the work they do. We help them get credentialed, and then they say, unfortunately, we cannot stay here. And I can't be angry when someone says to me, I have to leave, only sad. And sometimes they walk across the street to the K-12 system because they're going to make 40 to 60% more. But sometimes they work to a different kind of dead-end job, but they still make $4 or $5 more an hour. This is not a job of last resort. Early childhood education is a career. The people who do this work are educators. They are not just workers. They contribute every day in their community. We need to think of this as a common good and treat it as such. We need to invest in a way that brings up the tide for all the people who are doing this work. The unintended consequence of us keeping these wages low is that the industry is the proving ground for K-12. People build their skills, they build their credentials, and then they are forced to leave. And so the constant rotation in and out of the industry makes it so that we lose really highly qualified, highly experienced, mentored teachers. And so the industry gets more and more fragile. It has more and more breaks in it. And if we don't do something quickly, we will not be able to recover. Early childhood education won't go away, but high quality early childhood education will be untenable because there is not enough money for people to live their lives. I cannot be upset when a parent says to me, I have to leave because I cannot afford to pay my rent and I need to go somewhere where I can. And we hear this on a regular basis. We have families at the same time where I'm trying to keep this staff in who are coming and begging for seats because they want to be in our high quality programs. Families understand the importance of early childhood education. Sometimes their voice is lost because they are so busy in the day-to-day work of making early childhood work for them in their households. But they want their child in a safe, secure place so that they can go to work and know that their child is safe. And when we have to turn people away because I can't open classrooms, there's nothing I can do. I cannot in good conscience bring people in who cannot do high quality educational work in the field. I cannot bring people in who are going to work for 2 months and then leave to go to Chick-fil-A. I cannot bring people in who are not dedicated to this challenging, ongoing, everyday work that is educationally based. Even though we are under the Department of Human Services, do not be confused. We are part of the education system. Children's brains are developing so quickly in that first 5 years. If this Commonwealth wants to ensure our future, we need to make sure that those children have a pathway to easily, smoothly, and with success move into the K-12 system without hitches as part of the education of the children of our Commonwealth. And again, I'm privileged to be here, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Leslie Spina. Thank you for sharing your story of how the recruitment and retention of staff have impacted the high-quality care that your programs gives to families in your community every day. I'm Mai Miksic. I'm the Deputy Director for Policy at Children First. I want to close today by thanking the lawmakers who've joined us for advocating alongside us so passionately for the Recruitment and Retention Fund for our child care workforce. An investment of $55 million for a Recruitment and Retention Fund is a start. $1,000 for child care workers for each child care workers is just a start, and we need more. We look forward to a strong investment in the child care workforce, which would result in huge economic returns to the Commonwealth and the people living here. Thank you so much.